Okay, so I kind of wanted to do an update for my magazine collection. I had posted a video earlier that had gone through and I showed off. I had my Playboys and the different Stephen King magazines, like from Entertainment Weekly, etc. And then even some comic books that he had written part of or had contributed to in some way. Well, since then, I've gone through and I've cleaned out a lot of my comic books. I used to have a lot of comic books, and I decided I didn't need my comics anymore. So I went through and cleaned out. I went from about 15 short boxes down to just 4 and got rid of everything else. And so I had a bit of credit at the local comic shop. So I actually was sitting there and I looked over and they had a box marked heavy metal magazines. And so I looked it up and I Googled heavy metal magazines. And the first thing that came up was, for Stephen King, was 293. So I start flipping through the box, and at the very beginning, the very first number at the beginning is 295. So I'm like 295, 294, 293, 293. And there were actually two 293s that had 2 different covers. And they were literally just right beginning of the box. So I kind of considered that as a good luck sign. I was meant to have those. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any other King contributions to the heavy metal magazine. I know he had done some other ones, but here's the first cover. Kind of cool looking cover there. And then here is the second cover. And what it is, it's an adaptation of a story written by King called The Green God of Agony. And I have not read it. I'm not familiar with it. But yeah, and then it's a comic book type adaptation. So there again, it ties into the comics. And it's the same story in both magazines. So it's just the different cover, variant cover, which I still think that's really cool that they just happen to be literally, boom, right there in the beginning of it. And then on the same trip, they actually had another box that was entertainment magazines, but they were older. They were from like the 80s or 90s. And I found this one, and it has an interview in there about Firestarter. So I picked it up, and it's actually got some neat little behind the scene pictures and stuff, and it's got a good article about it. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing to add to my Stephen King collection. That's always one of his books and movies that I thought that they could do a sequel. Now I know there was a Sci-Fi Channel sequel, Firestarter Rekindled. Not great. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I don't consider it as part of the same story. So I mean, I would like an actual series or another story with starring Charlie. And maybe, now that the Institute's been done, from what I hear, I haven't read it and I don't have a copy of it yet, but I hear that maybe some way they could tie that in there. I think that'd be really cool. So, and then the other thing I have is I didn't get a complete run of it, but Stephen King was also part of another comic series called American Vampire. And he was only part of the first 5 issues, I believe. And I have issues 1 through 4. So that was kind of cool to get updated and added into my collection. And at the same time that I got these added in, I can't speak, added in, I also at the same time bought some of Joe Hill's Lock and Key, and then a book of artwork from Lock and Key that I'm probably going to show later on. So just wanted to give that little update on those are a couple things that I had purchased since I filmed that last video about my magazines. So if you have questions or comments, leave them below. Hope everyone's staying safe and keep reading.